So you've obviously all joined us for the event Unlocking Excellence with Dynamics Food for Food Manufacturers. And we're really pleased that you've taken the time to do that, and we appreciate that. There's two of us presenting today, myself, Liam, and Darren, who looks after our new business development for the food industry. And so we'll be with you for the next hour and a bit, I guess, depending on questions or anything else that pops up. What we're going to cover today is a few bits and pieces. The majority of the presentation you're going to see is around the Dynamics 365 Business Central product and how we've tailored that for the food industry, how it's a great fit. We will start there with a very brief overview of who we are as a partner. There's always two elements to a project and choosing an ERP solution, and that really is around one, getting the right product, but also the partner that you're working with, not just to implement it with, but really the long-term relationship that you have, and we'll touch on that in a moment. But as I said, we've got time for Q&A at the end. But if anybody wants to ask anything, there is a chat. I'm sure we're all used to Teams now for the last 4 years. So feel free to chuck anything that you might have question-wise within the chat, and we will do our best to answer it as we go through the presentation. Okay, a little bit about us. As we said, we Technology Management are a Dynamics 365 reseller. It's the only products we work with. We've been going now since 92, so we're in our 32nd year. We've work only with two products within that suite. We work and focus on what Microsoft defined as the SME industry. We predominantly work with the middle section of that. If I look at most of our customers, their user count is probably higher than the average that Microsoft have. So we class ourselves as more of the mid-size for SME, but we do have a few customers that are below that, and we have a few that have over hundreds of users. But we've 158 of us work at Techman. That's about to rise to 170. We take an annual academy intake in, which I'll touch on in a moment. And as I said, we've been going for it says 31 years plus. Yeah, we just got into our 32nd year, or about to at the end of July. And we turned over last year 15 million. And of course, a lot of partners, you can see the spread. We cover the entirety of the UK, as you imagine. But we do think we're different to the majority of other Dynamics partners out there, and I'll try and explain why. We are still privately owned, so we don't have any shareholders or investors, venture capitalists or whatever to answer to at the end of each year. The decisions we make, we believe, are the ones that are right for our customers, because we believe that if we keep doing that, that's the way we founded the business, and that's what we continue to aim to do. So if we do what's right for our customers, we think everything else really will look after itself to a point. We invest an awful lot into our staff, because although, yes, we are Dynamics 365 resellers, it's our people's understanding of particular industries and their knowledge that really make the difference when they're working with your teams to implement the software, and then have this long-term relationship of continuing to evolve with the software as your business changes, as the climate we work in, the way that's changed in the last 4 or 5 years has been fairly dramatic. And so we believe by investing in our staff, having long-term members of staff, we don't have a high turnover of staff, especially for the IT industry. We retain them very well. That means that they get to know your business and the people that work within your business, and they forge strong relationships. We also have a big support team, as you can see across in the green panel on the slide, where we have they're dedicated. There's over 26 people in that team currently that just do support. Yes, there's various levels, various different knowledge of industries, but they're not rostered on one day and they're off on a project the next. You will get the continuity you expect as part and parcel of that. We still try and maintain to be a technically led organization, not technology for technology's sake, but looking and really refining and deciding where the new technology that Microsoft are bringing to market can benefit our customers. And so hopefully we'll be able to then bring that down to our customers and bring some value to the market. The other thing where we are really quite unique is that we are focused purely on anybody that makes or distributes something. So that's our core foundation. We grew out of the Black Country, and so most of our early customers did that, probably making more in those days, but we work a lot with manufacturers and distributors. And we've then probably gone into 3 subsections of that, and the food industry is one of those. So we've been in food for over a decade with the Dynamics ERP product. it's been renamed a few times, but it's now known as Business Central. If you might have known it before as Navision, Nav, but it's now known as Business Central. John, I can see you've got your hand up. Is there something? Is there a problem that you can't?
Yes, Liam. Just a quick question, please, on the support team. The 26 people. What's the average longevity of those staff?
The average longevity, one of our guys is just about to retire this year, and he's been with us for over probably 15 years. Andy has. In terms of the two leaders of the team, they've been with us for probably 8 or 9 years. And the general team, I would say the average is probably 6 to 7 years.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I can definitely get those numbers, but off the top of my head, what I will say, and I'm probably going off topic here, we've tried to make support not a stepping stone. We used to see people come into support and try and then move into consultancy because they saw it as more glamorous or more profitable for them. We actually build a career within support now. We want people to stay there, realize that's where their skills are, and we actually have quite a few consultants with a lot of experience that didn't want to be, in projects all the time. Have actually come into support and brought a lot of expertise. So we try and really value that team because it's the number one contact point our customers have once you've gone live on a system. So it's important we have that absolutely right. But yes, we focus predominantly on manufacturing and distribution, and food is one of those. We've been working with the food sector. Well, it's probably close to 15 years. Darren, you've been with us 10, and has been focusing on driving that business forward over time. And one of the things that we are starting to see, this is from some research from Microsoft, that the business decision makers that we're working with, yourselves, but also your customers, there's been a shift, obviously, as time moves on. We all get a little bit older, and that baby boomer generation that probably didn't really value IT and what it brought and saw it more of a cost and an overhead is moving out as they retire or move out, leave the business. Is less and less now, and the main business decision makers that we're all dealing with are those two demographics in the middle, Gen X, which I guess a lot of us are probably sitting in there, and then the younger band coming through, the millennials, that are also making the decisions. People that have almost been brought up with a mobile device in their hand, and they expect what we're seeing, a completely different service from the people that they work with, their suppliers. They expect to be able to access, data that for about your business, whether that's placing orders, looking at the latest invoice, reordering, what's going on with a support ticket from our side, anytime, night or day, any device. And they expect to have those portals and that service. They expect to see the benefits that they see in their personal life with technology rolling into their business and their professional careers as well. And so there's a huge change in what people are expecting from the organizations they do business with. And we're having to really look at the products that we're working with and saying, can we deliver this with the minimal of cost? I'm not saying without cost, because that's ridiculous, but how can we do this sensibly and make sure that not just the systems are in place, but the data that is being provided is accurate and useful to those people that are requesting it, our customers. And the leader of Microsoft, the CEO, Satya Nadella, came out with this statement a couple of years back, to be fair, but digital technology is a deflationary force in an inflationary economy. And we know the challenges we've all faced as businesses. We came through COVID, which obviously was something new for everybody. But then since then, we've seen inflation, going through the roof until probably the last 4 or 5 months. We saw the issues that we're hitting the supply chain, the predictability of that, and the way we probably all try to keep less stock and moving quickly suddenly became a problem when we couldn't resolve some of those issues. So how on earth can digital technology bring a deflationary impact on our business or in the economy that we're working on? And so what we try to do is just pick a few or 3 options that we've listed here. So we've been banging on about the cloud now for over a decade, and for the last few years we've seen that the resistance to that has completely disappeared. But the move to the cloud brings an awful lot of benefits in terms of driving costs down. That it allows us to, or allows you as businesses, if you need a surge, if you're seasonal, like a lot of organizations are in food, to have more power at a particular time of year because you need to process more stuff. You don't have to go out and source more servers like we had to do and stick them in the server room and put more aircon in, and then they weren't being used when you got into maybe past the Christmas rush, if that's your peak time. And so by having the cloud, we can dial up and dial back down the resource that is required. we can move quicker in that space. We can deliver stuff to our customers better. It's available without all the high availability that we would have to pay for ourselves if we were doing that on premise. It's all built into the solution we're going to show you today, and it's available 24/7. This has got Microsoft behind it. Does it ever go down, or do you have any outages? Yes, but every customer we've ever put on has said it's way higher in terms of the uptime. They have SLAs and metrics way higher than anybody would have if they were on an on-premise solution. So that's important to us. And then, of course, that collaborative business approach that we all want within our business, that we want to be able to get that data in front of the right member of staff at the right time to help them make their decision and to really unify what they're doing. And that idea of one version of the truth is really important. We still have cases when I talk to new customers about somebody phones up to speak to someone in your sales team or however they act, and they say, do we have X, Y, and Z? Can we provide this service? Can we provide this for a certain timescale? And even though the system says, yes, we've got that product in stock, they then pick up a phone call and speak to someone, in the food manufacturing plants or where it's being distributed from, and they check. And that person then, again, rather than trust the system, wanders down just to check, because nobody really trusts the data that's in there, which is pointless. If we're going to put these systems in, we have to trust the data that's going to be in there. So that unification of data, one core data source, is what we're going to promote today. We're going to show how that data can flow through other systems, but really that's the areas we're looking at. And that will hopefully, as you can see in the final piece on that slide, will make us more efficient, will mean we can deliver things quicker in terms of value, that we're not having stuff on the shelves that is going out of date, and we need to push that out, and eventually we'll reduce our cost. So it will bring pricing down, and hopefully we can pass that on to our customers. By working with Microsoft, who are the vendor of the Dynamics 365 products, we believe that brings an awful lot to the table, as well as the core products that we work with. You can see at the top of that slide, Business Central, which is what we're going to focus on today. We also have their CRM product as well. But the data will flow through into those apps that we probably lived and breathed with for probably 25, 30 years now, which were the Microsoft 365 or Office, as we probably know it as, Word, Excel, Teams, Outlook, the tools we probably live in for most of the day. And we want that data going through, and Darren will probably talk about how we can see certain elements of our data within Outlook from Business Central if we want to set that up. But that data will flow through and will allow us, we're seeing that in Teams, and meaning we can reduce some of our licensing costs, that we can share data from our ERP solution into Teams for someone that's got that but doesn't want to have a Business Central license. They just need to consume that data rather than actually amend it or interact with it. And of course then it's all running on the Azure cloud platform that we've briefly mentioned already, that Microsoft support and continue to improve upon. And then we've got what I've been calling the new kids on the block, really, which is the Power Platform. And Darren's going to touch on some of that, I think, in the presentation today, where these low-code tools. So when you want an amendment or a change done to Business Central, there's an element of development that has traditionally taken place. What we're seeing now is we're going to keep the data within Business Central, but it can flow into these other things. So Power Automate is their workflow tool. Power Pages is a way for organizations to generate portals or websites that, again, can have triggers from our core applications. And we can build a Power App. So if we want something quite quickly and easily to appear on a tablet or a mobile phone device for maybe people that are in the field, that's something we can now do, or even you can do in a much easier way. And Power BI is probably the one that more people have heard of, which is their reporting and visualization tool that they've had there. So all the data that we want to keep in Business Central, but it can now flow through, can trigger things to take place, so workflows can kick off when certain things happen within your system, or a Power App can gather information from the field and push it back into Business Central. So again, we're just keeping that one version of the truth around. Okay, so some of our customers within the food industry, so we've worked with food for probably 15 years now. We believe we're the biggest partner in the UK, Business Central partner that works with the food industry in terms of delivering projects. You can see a few of the organizations we work with. We're not working with fresh food, so we make that very clear. If it's coming straight out of the ground, that's not really what we do. We are food manufacture, food process, where we work with most of the organizations, and there's a few there on the screen. Some are large, some are small. So as I say, it shows the scale of Business Central. This isn't a product you're going to grow out of. So when people move off older versions of ERP solutions, it's either because they're end of life, or they've outgrown the QuickBooks or those type of products. Business Central will continue to grow with you. Microsoft are investing hugely into these products. It's a subscription service now, so you're constantly getting new features and new updates coming down. There's 2 major releases each year, spring and autumn, and then also what they announce then will be rolled out over that next 6-month period. So you're paying for a subscription. We want to help you understand what's coming down the line so you can benefit from the features that they are putting in. So it's not the old days of you install this software and then in 4 or 5 years we bang on the door and say, right, you need to do an update, which is painful. It's almost like a re-implementation. This is the constant drip of smaller changes, which mean that you don't have to take the system down. You don't have to retrain your staff massively. Yes, we're going to educate you and educate your staff on what's new, but it's going to be a small incremental changes. We're probably all getting used to with the SaaS-based systems that we are working with today. And then Microsoft, of course, as a global vendor, have written Business Central and the Dynamics 365 products to really sit, and they will do, I would say, 80% of what any business will need. It will do your financials. It'll do an element of manufacture and so on and so forth. We've put there in the middle of the slide, you can see Dynamics, and then in the grey section around it, that's what the products actually do out of the box. So manufacturing, finance, distribution. If you're using the CRM products, of course, you get some marketing, customer service, etc. But then Microsoft encourage organizations like ourselves to then build that either localized knowledge, if it was something just purely for the UK, but also industry knowledge. And then the areas in the green is what we are adding to the product. So from a food perspective, EDI is incredibly important when you're maybe transacting with the large supermarkets or the large buyers. That's important. That gets forced upon you. We have written the integration of that. We manage that completely, and we'll touch on that. Darren will touch on that later. We have the ability for quality control, which is vital for the food industry. Again, what you get out the box from Business Central probably won't cut what you need to do. So we have added to it. You won't know. You look like it's all in the product, but we have added to that. And as you go around that green wheel that we've got on there, hopefully there'll be some areas that will resonate with yourself, because we know nobody comes one day and just suddenly says, I got to buy some new ERP. There's always a trigger point, something that is causing your business a headache, whether it's growing pains. You're doing very well, but you're managing to maintain control or the ability to know what's going on, or whether you are having a hard time and we need to reduce costs, or we've lost a decent sized contract because of something we didn't do particularly well. And so the areas we've built around are focused on the distribution sector, but then we've gone and added again onto the top of that from a food industry. So we've got things like catch weight, we've got the container management when things are going in and out, new product design and development, those type of things we've tried to add again. So that gives you a little idea around us and what where we've set out to try and be a little bit different, and why we believe we're the best fit in the UK for the food organizations that are out there. So I'm going to hand over to Darren now. He's going to go into a little bit more detail about the product, but I'll be around for the rest of it. If anybody's got any questions, I'll try and answer those in the chat as well as Darren's doing the demo. Darren, do you want to hand over? I'll hand over to you.
Thanks, Liam. Okay, so I'm not going to go any more with PowerPoint. I might flick to a couple of screens just to give you a bit of context there, but we're going to actually dive into the product now. So I'm going to take you on a tour and show you some of the key things there. Starting right at the beginning, Liam said right at the beginning there that Business Central is part of the Office 365 or Microsoft 365 platform. So when we start our Office journey, Business Central is just another icon within Office. You just click on the icon, then it will go into Business Central for you. It's integrated into your Outlook. So if I can get my Outlook window to pop up here. It's just done that again. Bear with me a second. Can you remember how to get rid of that horrible box at the top of your screen, Liam? No, doesn't matter. I'll just click Outlook again. It should open up again. So when you go into Outlook, you can have your users on the right hand side. If I just do a search for an order from a customer, maybe inside there, I can then pop up my box on the right hand side and say I want Business Central on Intact's contact insights on the right hand side. So basically what you're doing, you plug in Business Central into your Outlook, so all the information about your customer then, or your supplier, whichever it may be, is available to you on the right hand side. You can pin that to your box then as well if you wanted to, just so it's permanently available there. But again, this is Business Central here, so I can click on any one of these links here and go in. So let's have a look at some of these shipments we've done to this customer, because he may be asking about a shipment. I can then drill into it further. I can also pop out the screen if I wanted to have a bigger view, because it's a little bit smaller there. But basically, it's all integrated there. And that's the same with the whole Microsoft platform now. So I'll show you how it's integrated with Excel. We've got the Power BI stuff you've got there. You can use Word. Teams is becoming more and more useful now, so you can actually dump data into Teams so people can see the data you're talking about in Teams and things like that. So all of the portfolio of Microsoft Office is shared within the solution there for us. We also have the artificial intelligence built into here as well. So I can, let me just close that down for a second. I can also do things like, new. So I can click on the new button there and say I want to create a new sales order. So what the system will do then, it will look at my order here from the customer and it will go and try and create a sales order. I'll plug this into the wrong database at the moment, I noticed earlier. But in theory, it would suggest what the customer wants from you, either as a new order, a new quote, wherever it may be. And you can right click there and say, yep, go and create that new order or new quote and send it out to the customer. So that's where your journey starts. Your journey ends generally inside of Power BI. So the data that comes out of the system can be visualized in Power BI. I've got a few different Power BI examples here. So I've got one where I have a web screen where I've got a visualization of my warehouse, and I can actually say, well, show me where my items are, show me where my empty locations are inside my warehouse. You can visualize everything. You can click on an individual item and drill in. So it's just kind of visualizing the end data inside your Business Central system. Again, that's just one example there. There's lots of different visualizations you can have with Power BI inside your system. I can never get access to the ones that go underneath there. There must be a special key that I'm not aware of to do that. So I've got different visualizations. Actually, if I just click on that there and do another Power BI, I've got a nice plugin here that I've plugged into my Google Analytics for Power BI. So it actually then links your website to your Business Central system, so you can visualize orders that are coming in from people going on your website and things like that. But again, it's just a visualization. And then all of the Power BI, I don't know how much people have seen Power BI, but you can have all the screens will filter based upon the data you're clicking on at any point. So as I click on that particular segment of the website at that time, I've got all the information available to me about that within inside my filtered screen. Anyway, enough of that. Let's move back onto actual Business Central itself. So Business Central itself is a role-tailored environment, and what that means is the role that you play within the business will determine what you can do and what you can see on your screen. So all the security is all there inside there, links to your Office account, so you don't have to worry about that. But you can also have different roles within the system. So if I just give you an example, I'm logged on as a business manager at the moment, but if I go into my settings there, we can see we have lots of different roles that I could have within the business. So I could have a warehouse worker. So if I click on a warehouse worker screen, they will have a completely different view of the system to me, because they're interested in stuff coming in today, stuff going out today, and internal movements perhaps. So you don't want to bombard them with lots of data on the screen. You just want to give them the key bits of information that they need. So again, that's a screen that we may design for a warehouse worker. And again, if they want to see on their unassigned picks, they click on that button there and off they go and they can start doing their role. I'm just going to flick back to some of the other roles there now. So I'm just going to go to Business Manager again there, but you can also see we've got things like for the disassembly orders, we've got people for in the quality department and things like that. So I'm just going to skip on those and just go back to Business Manager. One other nice thing that you have within the system as well is the ability to use the system anywhere in the world. As long as you've got an internet connection, you can use the version I've got here anywhere in the world. So if I go into design mode, I can see what my screen looks like in a web browser, whether that's an Apple Mac or on a computer, a normal Windows PC. I can see what it looks like on a tablet. So again, we use tablets extensively on the quality. So you can use a camera on the back of the tablet to take photos of pallets that come in, quality shoes and things like that. I can also see what it looks like on a mobile device, like on a mobile phone. And each one of them will have a different look and feel because your screen furniture is slightly different on each device. and they're used for different roles within the business. But that's how you can also access a system. But when I design anything from my main screen, it will automatically be available to anything on these other devices. So I don't have to do a bespoke bit of work to just get them to work on the other devices. Going back to my main role again, when we log into the system, you have the role that you have will show what you have on your screen there. So all of these little boxes you can see on screen, sales quotes, sales orders, are what we call queues, piles of work. So I can drill into them and see all my sales orders by clicking on that one there. And I can design this screen to show me what's relevant for my role. So for example, I could say, I don't want to just see sales orders within the system. I just want to see my sales orders from Tesco maybe, or from Morrison's, or from wherever it may be. So you can have as many of these boxes on screen filtered however you want to for the role that you are. I've got a bit further down my screen, I've got some other boxes on there. So sales totals, purchase totals, I've got approvals. So we have approvals throughout the whole of the system if you want to use them. I've got intercompany transactions. Again, if you've got multiple companies doing trading with each other, I've plugged into a website so I can see my Shopify activities. I've got an advanced credit control app here, so we can do advanced credit control to manage the control within there. What I will try and do as I'm going through is differentiate between what is standard in Business Central and what Techman have done to make it more food specific for you. So what we basically do, as Liam alluded to earlier, we take the core ERP from Microsoft, and then we add lots of extra features to it to make it more specific for the food industries. For example, we have disassembly bombs. We have the ability to have catch weight, unders and over receipting. We've got extended expiry dates on manufacturing and raw materials. So if your raw material is going to go out of date before you use them, it will tell you and all that kind of stuff. So lots of things we have in there. The credit control here is one of our most popular ones. So we have advanced credit control, and it's just an add-in that we sell to our customers. And to work with the add-ins, all you have to do is go to what we call the extension marketplace, if I can spell. The extension marketplace is using Microsoft App Store, and you can see there's probably well over 3,000 apps in the Microsoft App Store now for doing all sorts of different things. So again, you can do expense management. We can do things like I always have PayPal installed on my machine, so I can do things like PayPal. And when you filter it, it will show you all the apps that are relevant for that particular kind of functionality that you want to do. We can also do planned maintenance, maybe. So maintenance. So if you want a maintenance app, if I can spell again, T-E-N-A-N-C-E, within the system. So there's all sorts of different maintenance apps you can have on there for doing, planned maintenance and all that kind of things. There's literally hundreds of different apps you can have, and each one of those will basically plug into your system to extend the functionality you have. If you don't like it, you can unplug it. If you do like it, you can have it. And what the way of installing all these apps here, it does not invalidate your automatic upgrade path from Microsoft. So once a month, Microsoft release a new version of the solution, which is normally small increments or maybe bug fixes all within the software. And once every 6 months, we have a major release of the software. And once you're on the cloud, all those come automatically to you. So again, plugging all these extra extensions to extend the functionality of Business Central will not invalidate that automatic upgrade path. And with all the test routines that go in there, we can make sure they're all compatible with the new versions. I'm not going to talk about that too much at the moment though, because we're going to talk about manufacturing. So just a quick look at some other areas first. So there's two different types of screen you have in Business Central. One is the list screen. So if I go into my sales orders on my screen, we can see we have lists of items here. It works just like Excel, basically. So you can have freeze panes, you can have column sorts, you can have filters on screens. On the left-hand side of the screen here, we can have all sorts of different filters I want to see. So I can filter my data by postcode, by pretty much any field that's available to me within the system. And I also then can create additional filters. And again, I have access to all the filters of the fields within my system. And I can say document type of order, and then another filter for status of open, etc., etc. And I can literally continue to filter my list there until I have what I want, and then I can press save, and I'll call it Darren 1. There we go, and I've got a previous save now. So anytime I want to access that one, I can go between the different filters to see different views of my data. We can also change the column order as well if we wanted to in that particular instance, but again, I'm not going to go to that at this point at the moment. Other things that are relevant there, on the right-hand side of the screen, we have fact boxes. So as you're going down between your individual orders, contextually, the data displayed on the right-hand side of the screen will change. So I can go down and see Tesco stores have got an outstanding balance, quite a big outstanding balance there. But any one of these I can drill into and say, well, what payments they had in, and then drill into any one of these entries to say, well, what is that document that they've paid in there? So again, if you have permission, you can drill from anywhere in the system to anywhere else within the system if you want to. And again, as I'm going down between the system, all that information will change to be more relevant for the item I'm on. Okay, red is not good, by the way, so they've got lots of overdue invoices as well. The second type of screen you have, if I actually drill into one of the sales orders there, is the edit screen. So we can see here, this is how we can put a sales order on the screen, where we can just basically see the different tabs on there. So tabs go down the screen rather than traditionally across the screen, but that means I can basically minimize all the tab information to maximize my screen furniture. So if I've got a big order to put on, I can say, oh, I need as much screen as I can to put the order on, so it goes into maximum order screen mode. We can change the tab order of things. You can change things so they pop up occasionally. So again, as I'm minimizing these tabs, information will pop up onto the tab there to show you some key information. I can then say, show me the key information there, and I can also then show more. So occasionally I might need to have a different bit of information available to me, etc., within the system. So that's the second type of screen you have. And again, on the right hand side, we also have more context sensitive information. So as I'm going down between orders there, it's not a very good order, is it? It's for a polo shirt there for Tesco. Let's go down to some chicken orders or something like that, maybe. That was one I did. Here's one I did earlier, maybe. Probably didn't actually, it's a different one. But I'll go down there. But on the right hand side, we have context sensitive information that we can drill into, see the stock items, what's in stock, what's out of stock, etc. Moving on, I'm just going to go through to the most important area of the system, in my opinion. So that's items. So this is your item master area where most of your key data resides. So we can see here, if I go to my key items, same functionality. We have freeze panes on the screen. We have filters on the left-hand side of the screen. We can also say, I want to view the information as tiles. So we can have the information there where lots of bits of information available to us, or I can have tool tiles. I can get rid of my filter boxes, wherever you want to do on screen. On the right-hand side, again, context-sensitive information that shows key information about the item that you're actually currently focused on inside the system. So all of my items are available here. And if I now go and show you some key information about them, I'm going to build, as part of this, I'm going to show you how the manufacturing elements of the system works today. So again, any questions you get up as we go along, please let me know. So I'm going to go in and build some chicken pakora, because this is one of my favorite foods, believe it or not. So I'm going to have a look at the actual chicken pakora itself, and we can go through and see how this works. So when we drill into the item, we're on the item master data here. So we have all sorts of information about the key items within the system. We have your image on the right-hand side. We have item information, so we can see some key information about the item itself. We have stock information, so we can see how much is on purchase order, production order, how much is in inventory. If we click on that one, we can go in and actually see what stock we've got. So we've got a purchase receipt that bought some stock into there. We can then go in and find the entries, do order tracking, see what's available, etc. So all of these are hyperlinks that are drillable if we need to. We can also go in and see costing and posting information. So what costing method I'm going to use. So normally in a production environment, you probably use standard costing for the actual produced item, and maybe FIFO for sort of packaging or something like that. Again, the costing methods are individually item specific. I can also then see pricings and sales information. So against each item, we have a quite sophisticated pricing mechanism. So you can have customer specific pricing, item specific to a customer pricing, price breaks, prices by dates. We can also have the same thing as discounts. So you can have net price for everyone, and everyone gets a discount against different items inside there. We can have different sales units of measures to purchase units of measure, and we can also do catch weight as well. So you've got dual unit of measure. Again, this is an add-on that Techman have done to improve when we're working with people that work with meat or fish or cheese or things like that, because they only need dual units of measure. So you're buying each cheese, but then sell in or pay for it in weight that you ship. Other things that we got there. The ability to have items that are blocked. So you can actually, you can't buy them maybe anymore, but you can still sell them, or you can not sell them anymore. Again, depending on how you work. When you need more items, we have the replenishment mechanism. So inside Business Central, we have 3 different ways of getting more stock. You can buy it with a purchase order, very simple way of doing it. You can assemble it, which is a simple way of manufacturing. So what you do in an assembly order, I will show you one of these in just a second, you just say what the materials required is, and then have an overhead for a labour element. What assembly doesn't have, it doesn't have capacity planning or routing or anything like that, which I'll show you in a second now. And then the final one is production order, which we're going to concentrate on today, which is a more sophisticated way of doing production, where you have different bombs, different quantities, scrap, routing, capacity planning, and all sorts of things that go into the system. But as you choose these different methods there, you have lots of other information to pop up on screen, such as lead time calculations, your manufacturing policy, your production bomb, you're going to have what routing or what, so your recipe and your ingredients basically are these 2 key areas here. Your lot size, so I'm making chicken pakora here, and my vat can make 200 kilograms at a time, so my maximum lot size is 200 in this instance. So if I get an order for 100 kilograms of stock, it will suggest I make 200 because my vat generally makes 200. If I get an order for 300, it will suggest I make 2 200s, or depending on how I set the system up, it may say make a 200 and a 100 if you can do less than the maximum quantity each time again. And again, all of these modifiers are available within the system. So I'm just going to go and have a look at the production bomb here. So a quick way of drilling in, I'm just going to show you the top level production order here. So when we're making things in Business Central, you can have simple flat bombs, so everything is on the one level, or you can have multi-level bombs. So in a food manufacturer here, if I'm making chicken pakora, for example, I may make chicken pakora for multiple retailers. So I may make a Morrison's version, a Tesco version, an own brand version, and different ones. Now, if I've got the same recipe in those items, and all that changes when I'm shipping it to different companies is the packaging, then I can have a single bomb or a recipe for making the actual chicken pakora itself. And then I have a second stage that takes some of that chicken pakora and puts it into a Tesco label box, for example. So if I just do a search and filter on my pakora things, I've broken my system here into 3 areas. So I've got the actual chicken pakora itself, which I make in kilograms. Then I take 400 grams of chicken pakora and put it into a Tesco pack. And then I take 12 packs of that and stick it into a Tesco 12-pack case. So drilling into the case, I can have a look at this and say, well, show me what my bill of materials is for, oops, go onto my button here, show me my structure is. And it will break down then and show me how I make a chicken pakora. So we can see here, we've got 3 levels there. The bottom level is the actual chicken pakora itself, where we have some chicken, some flour, some corn flour, some salt, some chili, etc. All of these ingredients going in. And then I have 3 stages or 4 stages of making that. So I do cut the chicken, mix the ingredients, then do a second mix, adding extra ingredients in, then adding the third lot of ingredients in before finally cooking it. Then my second level is I'm going to take 400 grams of that chicken pakora and stick it into a Tesco pack. Oops, I've got some chicken pie in there as well, which is not very good. And then the third level is I'm going to take 12 of those packs. I'm going to put them into a case of 12 items. So we can see all the different breakdown of all those items there into the final assembly. I can also, if I want to, go in and see a breakdown of the cost there to see where the cost is coming from. So I can do what's called a cost roll-up. So as I'm adding cost either in labour or material costs into here, the system will calculate those for me. And at the right-hand side here, we'll see I've got a very expensive chicken pakora here, because I just made some figures up inside there. You can see all the costs roll up to get a figure right at the end inside there, and you can drill into any one of these levels to see exactly how it works. So let's go and have a look at the actual individual bombs themselves. So let's go back into the pakora itself, and I'm going to drill into the bomb to show you how this works. So when I drill in, we can see the bill of materials to make this. So I'm making this in kilograms. We have different versions here. So if we plug in something like so we do an NPD add-on, which we use Dynamics CRM for managing the NPD process. So when you've got a certified product, we'll push it into the system, and then we'll have all the different units of measure that we're going to have for this particular item, whatever scrap factor at the individual component level. If you have scrap at the individual component level, you can have them identified here. But this basically makes up our bill of material, or our ingredients that go into this. We also can have sub-assemblies or sub-levels. We can have like different levels, as we said before, if you have different ingredients that get prepared and then put into a final mix. So this gives us our material cost for our production order. We then have our labour element, or the capacity requirements element. So if we drill in and see how we're making this pakora, we can see here the first thing we do is we cut some chicken up, and it takes us a minute per each chicken that we cut up. Then we got the first mix, and it takes us 10 minutes per batch. So set time is per batch, run time is per unit of measure. So run time is per kilogram, set time is per production order whole. So I'm going to mix a whole production run. It takes me 10 minutes to do the first mix, it takes me 15 minutes to do the second mix, another 15 minutes to do the third mix, and then I leave it for 30 minutes to mature, or just get all the ingredients all in there. And then finally I do a final cook, and it takes me 15 minutes to cook it. So all of these are per production order, all of these are per individual weight that we're going to do there. We also have lots of other things like wait time, move time, fixed scrap quantity. So if you're losing some in the pipes and you want to bring that into there, you can have scrap factors in there. We can have concurrent capacity. So if you've got multiple fryers that all do the same things, when I show you the visual production Gantt in a second, we'll see how things can all converge and go away and separate and all sorts of things there. If you're doing big production orders, you can have send ahead quantities. So this gives you a staggered Gantt chart there. So instead of waiting for everything to be done before you can go on to the next part of the production order, we can do that. You'll see here we have serial production, or we have parallel production. So if you've got your production line set up to a continuous production line, then you have everything running in parallel. Whereas if you've got the traditional way of doing it, where you'll do this, then you'll do this, then you can have it in serial. Again, it depends how your factory's laid out as to which way we use there. And then the final couple of bits that we have there, we have number of operators to run. So when I'll show you the packing area, it's probably more relevant there, because we can have multiple people packing the line, or in this case we've got 2 people cutting the chicken, but we only need 1 person on each of those lines there. So what that will do, it'll add an extra level of cost, which is people cost, into the run rates of these machines as well. Okay, so just drilling into that before we go out of here, each one of these work centers here will have a calendar underneath it. So what work shift patterns you're going to do. I'm just doing a single shift pattern here. We can have multiple shift patterns. So you can have like 3 8-hour sessions a day. And that will determine what your capacity is for that production center. So when the system is doing a Gantt chart, a little bit later on, I'll show you the Gantt chart. Let me flick to the Gantt chart now, so people can see where I'm, just in case people can't understand what a Gantt chart is. So when you're playing with the Gantt chart a little bit later, all your different production environments down here will have different capacities. So if you've got lots of capacity, you'll be able to do 8 hours a day. And the grey areas are non-working capacity, and the white areas are capacity availability. And it will basically stagger your production orders based upon the capacity you have available to you at that point. Let me just go back to my environment now. So that's the pattern you're going to do there. And you also then have the costing elements of what that machine center or work center takes to run. So you can have a machine center and you can have work. So a work center could be maybe my frying area, where I've got 10 fryers in there, and the system will then schedule against any one of those 10 fryers within your area. Or you can have individual work centers themselves, which have capacity. We also have the ability here to have what we call VAPs. So part of the production Gantt, we have the ability to have alternative routing. So what that means, traditionally this product will go down line 1, but if line 1 is jammed up or got a problem with it, we can also go down line 2, but it runs slightly slower because it's an older machine, or we have to do a different way of doing it because we haven't got some of the automation. So you can have alternative routes with different costs and different run times and speeds and things like that. And we'll show you a little bit more of that in detail when we go through. And then we also have lots of information about where he goes. So if you're consuming from a particular production area for this area, the factory, the system will allow you to do those kind of things as well. There's lots more we can do here, like non-conformities, but we're not going to cover those today. So that's our routing. Other kind of information that's relevant for you that's quite nice is, as part of there, we can have things like comments. These can be displayed out on the system. So step 1, we can have different comments for how we actually make things, and step 2 may have a different comment for then we do those, and then step 3 will have a different one. Or we can have a instructions that are attached to that production order. So normally we use Word documents or PDFs. You can then pop them up on screen whenever people need to do that as part of the production. We can also have specific tools if you need to have a particular tool that's needed there. Maybe if you're doing a cookie cooker, if you're doing biscuits or a particular thing, you can have tools that are specified there. And all this kind of information comes out either on touch screens when we go through and doing the production, or will be available on paperwork if you want paperwork outside of there as well. So that's a rough idea of how the routing works. So that's my bottom level we've got there. Before we go on to show you the packing and the final the packing area, I'm just going to talk to you about the planning characteristics. So this, again, another really important area of the system. So what we have here is different planning characteristics. So I've set mine on lot for lot. So what that basically means is every time demand comes in for some, it will look to see how much I've got in stock, and then it will say either I need to make some more or I've got enough to ship it. It's as simple as that. It's just a simple one. But we've also got things like what I like to return as back-to-back. So every time you get an order, it creates a production order. The other ones where it will always make to maximum quantity or fixed reorder quantity. So lots of different ways of ordering all those different things there. And each time you change one of these, the modifiers will change on the right-hand side to what's relevant for what you're trying to achieve there. Other things that are relevant there as well, we do have some nice things we have in the food industry that Standard Business Central doesn't have, like minimum shelf life on shipment. So if Aldi are demanding 7 days on their product when they get it, if you try to ship anything that's got less than 7 days, the computer will say it won't allow you to do that unless you can get a concession from them, maybe, if you do concessions. So the system's always looking at expiry date. So if we go a little bit further down the system, we can see the expiry date calculations fields in there. And something else that we can do as well, which is quite nice, is when we're making this recipe for making this chicken pakora, when MRP is running, if the raw materials it's going to use will be expired before the production order was there, it will assume those raw materials are not available to you, and therefore it will suggest you buy new ones. So it takes into account the expiry date of all the raw materials that goes in. So obviously we're working in the food industry, so everything is lot tracked, expiry tracked within the system when you bring things in, and the system will actually look at those and suggest there. We do have the ability to rework an expiry date. So if your technical team can extend the expiry date of an item, then we can do sublotting and keep the traceability when you do an expiry extension. So if you could wash something and make it last longer and stuff like that. We also, that's relevant as well, is when you're doing samples or when you're in the ingredients there, if you open a bag of chili, the expiry date for the lot of chili that you might have bought in maybe a year for powdered chili, but as soon as you open that bag, it becomes 7 days. So we can again create a sublot for the bags that you open that have a different expiry to the main production lot. So again, it takes into all those kind of things into account. That just makes it a little bit easier to manage the kind of things that you would assume systems will do, but Standard Business Central doesn't do that. We've tailored the system to that kind of things. Okay, so planning characteristics will determine what you should be doing whenever you get demand. Now, demand on the system is determined by a couple of things inside the system. So I'm just going to show you this because it's probably relevant there. So demand is created by either a forecast. So most food manufacturers will work to a forecast because the orders that come in from the customers don't come in until the last minute. So you can create a production plan to your forecast. Sales orders coming in and blanket orders coming in then will consume forecast until they exceed forecast. What we do then, we run an MRP, master production schedule, on the forecast, the sales orders and the blanket orders to determine what we should be making. When the system decides what you're going to be making, it will then flush through to the bill of materials to say, okay, to make that, you need all of these, which will then go into MRP to say, order all of these items based upon the min-max levels, the multipliers, the lead time from your suppliers. All of that is all worked on. And it will then suggest whether you do purchase orders, production orders, assembly orders, or transfer orders. So if you've got multiple factories or multiple locations where you're pushing and pulling information, or maybe you've got one factory that makes it and pushes it out to multiple depots, the system will take all of that into account to actually determine what you should be making and when, in order to get it all to the right places. I'm not going to talk about it, but I'm just going to very quickly flick to it that we do have full warehouse management within the system with advanced things like containers, warehouse capacity, locations, and all sorts of stuff. So we've got really sophisticated warehouse management we can add on. We are doing a webinar on that, which will touch on that a little bit more. I think it's next week or the week after. No, it must be next week, if you want to see that. But I'm not going to really go into it any more than that at the moment. But the last thing there, the planning cycle, is we will look through. So relevant here is when the MRP says we need some more of these items, the system will say, right, here's a planned production order that you need to do. So it will look at what you need and then suggest a planned production order. So a planned production order might be, our forecast is 12 months time. It suggests these are all the planned production orders you need for the next 12 months. Then when you get closer to the actual making of it, it will do a firm planned production order. Okay, which is, this is probably what we're going to be making next week. And then after that, when you actually launch production, it'll be a release production order. So that's what we're making now. So you've got making now, which is a release production order, a firm plan production order, which you've probably been making next week or the week after, and future demand, which is planned production order, which the system will delete every time it runs MRP and suggest new ones. So we'll be covering that in just a short while. But while on the screen, I just thought to show you that one there. I've probably confused everyone completely now by doing that, but we'll carry on and assume I haven't. Some other nice things that are relevant that I haven't shown you yet is anywhere within Business Central, we have the ability, if I just call up my screen there, to chuck the information into Excel. So I can, I've switched off my button there for doing it into Excel. Let me just go back one. I'm going to collect rid of my filter. So any screen you have on there, we can chuck that data into Excel. So you can see there, I can open it in Excel. So I can open in Excel, do a pivot table, do whatever I want to do. I can edit it in Excel. So if I go and open that up in Excel, I can open the file up and I can do a mass update of all my item master data in Excel. So when I'm logging in, when I'm opening up, it will log me into Excel. It'll make sure I've got permission to be able to see that data and do stuff with that data. So it's connecting to my system now. And then when it's done that, I will be able to see that, and I can then go down to what am I going to change? Let's change egg yolk there. I'm going to just change it to be egg yolk food for Darren. So remember which one I've done. I can then publish my data back to Business Central. So it will go through all the authorizations, make sure I do it. And when it goes back into Business Central now, if I do egg yolk, we'll see now it's called egg yolk food Darren. Okay, so it changes it very quickly. So it's a great way of actually doing master data changes really quickly and easily. Other things we can do, which is nice, I'm just going to show you a nice feature that's there. I can do, if I look at my posted sales invoices, and again, I can do this on the items as well, but it didn't look quite as useful on the items. So go to my posted sales invoices, and I can do an analysis view. And what that basically means is the system will allow you to turn your list view into a table view. So this is my normal list of my posted sales invoices. So I can see all my posted sales invoices here, and I can go into any one of those posted sales invoices to see what it was. But if I want to start doing some analysis of it without having to run a traditional report, I can put it into analysis mode, and I can say, show me, show sales. This is the AI, which Liam sort of talked about, I can't remember. Show sales by customer by month, and I can then get AI to actually say, well, what's the best way of showing that information there? As long as I haven't typed anything wrong, it will turn my table of data into a pivot table for me. So I'll give it a second to do that. There we go, and it's now turned that into a pivot table for me. And again, we've got all the normal kind of things there, so highlight multiple things. The system will show you the min, max, the maximum, the sum of those items there, and I can still drill into the data there, or I can filter it even more, or add in there an extra field to say actually want to value but closed. So we've got all that data's there, and I can save that away as a favorite pivot table if I want to. I can go in and create another one. So you have the ability there to actually have filtered data in pivot tables without having to chuck it into Excel to do it. And when I've finished with that, I just click on my button there and go back to normal list mode. So that's a really nice feature within Business Central as well. Another nice feature, if I go back to my chicken pakora, I'm just showing the artificial intelligence things here while I'm remembering it. We also have things here on the right hand side. So we've got item attributes. So as I'm creating my items here, I can give item attributes to these items. So things like allergens that you may have. So I've just put one allergen against this one here. We can have different ranges, smells, flavors, all sorts of things that are attributes to this particular item. And you can filter by attributes as well. So if you wanted to find anything with a gluten allergen, you just filter by those and show you all those particular items there, and these can then come out on documentation from the system. But I can actually draft some marketing information then by using the artificial intelligence again, and it will look at the item, look at all the key information about this item, look at my item attributes, and then say, here's an example of what you should do for your marketing speak for this particular item. Again, it does all sorts of strange and weird and wonderful things, and we can also change the tone of it to do a casual one, an inspiring one, a formal one. Again, it will look at all those key things there to make a little bit of marketing information for you. So this is where artificial intelligence is coming in a little bit more now and helping us make our life a little bit easier. The marketing people probably won't like that, but it's quite a nice way of actually keeping that up to date quite quickly. So those are all kind of features we have within the system. Right, enough about items there. I'm now going to go back and show you demand, placing orders on the system, and then showing you how production will be suggested for those items. So let's go to a sales order. I'm going to create a new sales order in the system. And again, beauty of Microsoft, everything is the same throughout it. So once you know how to create a sales order, you know how to create a purchase order, you know how to create a quote, a production order, they all work exactly the same way. Let's put that into smaller mode there. Let's do this for Tesco. Choose my item, and then I'm just going to have, incidentally, we also have the ability to restrict items by customer. So I haven't got time to show you everything on this webinar today, but we can say we can only sell Tesco branded stuff to Tesco. So if you try and ship them an Aldi stuff or a Morrison stuff, the computer will tell you can't do that. We also have favorite items and all sorts of stuff that you can also do within the system. You've also got there to suggest sales lines as well. If you want to, you can have the ones that the customer normally orders, but we're not going to worry about that today. So let's just try pakora. Let's order the case of pakora. Again, as you choose the item, the system will automatically pull in the price that you've assigned to that case of for that particular customer. So as I order 200 cases of this item, it would pull in the price. On the right-hand side, again, you've got all the context-sensitive information about the item, the availability, how much is in stock, when it's going to come in stock. And again, I can drill in any one of these here to say, well, when's my stock coming in? And you can then see exactly what's going out and what's coming in inside the system. And we also can have substitution, item substitutes, discounts, blanket orders, promotions, rebates. So most food companies will work to rebates. So we've got a rebates module, which allows you to manage and do all your rebates either on sales or purchase with stages and all sorts of things inside there. And again, promotions, which sometimes B2B will have a little bit of, more likely B2C customers on the promotions there. So you can see all these different things we have there as well. I'm just going to release this order now because I'm going to keep it really simple. I'll just order those. Now, what's going to happen now is Tesco have got a big debt with us at the moment. So the order has gone immediately onto credit hold. Okay. So that then could push that using the Power Automate directly to the finance team to say, customers trying to order some more stuff. What do you want to do about it? We can take payments on credit card on screen. So we can pop up a credit card on screen if we want to. Or we can go into the credit control screen here, managing the credit control for this particular item. This would normally be restricted to the finance team, but again, it's all about how you set the system up. I can look at the document to see all their credit information on the right-hand side, and then I can say, yeah, they're good for it. I'm going to let that one go. So I've released the order. I'm going to go back into my screen then. Oops. I've released the order there. So we said we're good with that one. I'm just going to change the dates here. So 13th, filter descending on there. Go back into my order. I'm going to refresh the release now. You see now it should be released inside the system, which means basically that order there has been accepted and it's good. Incidentally, one thing we haven't talked about on this is EDI. So a big part of the solution for the food industry is EDI. So we have standard EDI built into the system for orders, invoices, credit notes, ASNs, forecast. So if you get a forecast and you want to rely on it, you can bring that in as well. And the system will actually manage those. So in theory, an EDI order could come straight in and it would create this screen that I'm on at the moment to create an order, or it can go straight through to production or to shipping, depending on how you work as a customer. But my order's on the system now, so I've created some demand for that item. So I'm now going to go in and get the system to decide how I fulfill that order. So I'm going to go into planning worksheet. Click on my planning worksheet, and this is the area of the system called MRP basically, and it will say, I'm going to calculate a regenerative plan. So tell me what I need to make and when I need to make it, MPS, master production schedule, and what I need to buy and when I need to buy it, the MRP, the materials requirements planning. So you can run them both at the same time if you want to. You can have a start date and end date. You can go as far in the future as your forecast goes. So if you've got really long lead times on some of your raw materials, you want to go quite far in advance to make sure your raw materials are coming in at the right time. I can also join it with a forecast. So we haven't really talked about forecast much here, but I can have, if I just go and have a look at the details of this forecast, I can have a forecast for these items within the system. Let's go and forecast on my Pecora. I can click on my bottom right, filter that by Pecora. So we can see here we've got a forecast here. You can do it by week, you can do it by day, you can do it by month, you can do it by accounting period. So this is all the standard functionality you have in Business Central. We do have an extension here where we can chuck this data into Excel. You can create a forecast based upon this time last year plus 10%. You can do campaigns. And then when you finish Excel, you can bring it back into the system. There are apps out there for called AGR, SlimStock, Easy Stock, where they do sophisticated forecast management. If you've got lots and lots of SKUs and you have seasonality that you want to bring into and all sorts, we can do that as well. But again, I'm not going to worry about those at the moment. But I've got a forecast in there, which is also going to create demand on my system for different things based upon my demand forecast. So I'm going to go back in here. I'm going to say I want to use my forecast as well as any other demand on my system, such as my sales that I just put on there. And I'm going to click OK now. And it's going to go off, look at all my demand and suggest what I'm going to do. You can run this as often as you want. People don't have to be at the system. You can run it every hour in the background if you wanted to, or you can run it once a day to make sure before the end of the day, making sure all your purchase orders are going off to all your suppliers inside the system. So what this is going to tell me now is two different elements. One, what production orders I need to make, and two, what raw materials I need to buy to fulfill those production orders. When it's suggesting those, we do have something when we're using the visual production gang called EMAD, earliest material availability date. And what that basically does, it allows you then to draw a line in the sand that says there's no point starting production of this item. Oops, I've got one item I've created incorrectly. I'm not worried about that. Don't try making this item before this date here, because the raw materials are not going to be available before that date. And again, some of the kind of things you can do inside the system, you can have buffers. So even though you can get an item in today, realistically, it's not going to be QC checked and stuff for another day or 2 days before it's positive release. So therefore, I want a 2-day buffer on anything arriving before we can actually do production. All these kind of things that just smooth out the production process to make sure you haven't got any gaps and bottlenecks and people getting stressed about not having raw materials. So all that kind of stuff is available in there, and I'll show you that a little bit more in the next section. So we can see here we've got lots of other items. So I've got more than just my Pecora. I've got some chicken pies that are going to be ordered as well. So what will happen here, the first column here should be blank, but because my data's old, it's saying here things like I should have started making this in February. So again, my data's not so good here. And you can see here it's new. Change quantity, reschedule and change quantity, or cancel. So it's suggesting different kind of actions I need to do. And on the right hand side, it's suggesting the quantities and whether it's a production order or a purchase order. If it's a purchase order, who my default supplier is. If you need to change a supplier at that point, you can change the supplier. So if you've got dual source or you want to get something quicker, but it's a little bit more expensive, you can have all that kind of functionality available to you. Now, the system's also suggesting quantities. All of these can be overridden if it's relevant. So even though the computer suggests 1200, I can actually say, well, actually, I know there's another order coming in, but nobody's put it in yet. So I'm going to have 1400 at that point there. So again, these are all suggestions that can be overridden if required. And what the system should do in theory then, if this first column here wasn't checked, the system would check all these boxes here to say, I'm going to do that. So it's going to cancel a few orders there, some new there. It would check all these boxes here. There isn't a box to check them all at once, unfortunately. We can do that, but I haven't got one here, and there's quantities there. I'm just going to do the new one now. So all of these raw materials will come in. Oh, I've got loads. I'm not going to worry about all of them. But when you're ready, you can go carry out action messages. So everywhere where I've checked the box, go and do what I've suggested you do. So if it's a production order, I want you to go and make a planned production order, a firm planned production order, or a release production order, a firm planned and printed item, or go and create an assembly order, or go and create a purchase order and send it off to the supplier. So go and do all these different things, click OK, and the computer will go off and do all of those. So it's a really nice way of actually getting all the information at the system nice and quickly. So you can raise your purchase orders in a few minutes. Now, if you've got authorization switched on, it will raise the purchase order in the system, but it will send it through to be authorized before it can be released. So again, you can do it by the value. If people are on holiday, it will send it to someone else, all that kind of stuff that you'd expect to do within the system for authorizing things. Okay, I've got a number assignment error there, but it's done all those different things. If it's done them, it will remove them from my list. So I should now have a few production orders on my system. So inside the production orders, what the system's going to do, we have something called Netronics VAP. So this is a visual production Gantt software that we make in conjunction with Netronic. So we do all the nav business central elements. I keep calling it nav, been there for a long while. We do all the business central elements of the functionality here, and then they do the visualizations of how the simulations work and all the interesting graphics and things like that. So I'm going to create a new production simulation. Oops, I didn't want to do that. I pressed the wrong button there. Just go back out of there. That's an old one. So bear with me a second while I go and do this. I'm going to close that one. I'm going to create a new simulation. So you can have as many simulations as you want. So basically a simulation is a what if I do this, what the impact on my production schedule and stuff like this. We have a lot of information we can capture here when you want to do the schedule from. I'm just going to click OK at the moment and get to build a simulation. But the simulations are basically what if scenarios. When you have your simulation, you can drill into it, change whatever you want, drag things around, move things around, change the production plan. When you're happy with that, you then send that or update it to actually send all the updates out to the production orders to actually do what you want to do at that particular point. Now, I haven't got much production at the moment, but I'm going to drill into some of the weeks I've got here just to show you a little bit. So you can drill into this week, and we can see here we've got different chicken pakoras there. Anything on standby hasn't been scheduled yet. So I can click on these items here and it will show you where it's going to go through in the particular item. So it will show you where it's going to go. I can then do things like schedule all from standby, and it was go do its best guess at scheduling all the items for me based upon my capacity and all that kind of stuff. It scheduled them all into the past now for me. So I should have done that. I should be on today's date. Let me go up a bit. Where's it scheduled them all? There you go. It's gone all into there. So you can see here, that's the working date there. That's my schedule start there. And we can see here, as soon as you get to red dot, it says it's going to be late. So that case of chicken pakora is already late. This one here is already late. And if we drag it around, we'll see where it's allowed to be dragged and dropped to and when it's not allowed to be dragged up. So you can say what machines this goes onto, and the system will then allow you to drag and drop them onto those particular items. And it will also, when we drag it over a non-working period, you can see the line extends. So there's a lot of functionality within here that we're not going to go through today, but you can see schedule successors, apply alternative routing, so you're going to put a different route on there. And we can also, this is how we manage allergens as well. So the system isn't sophisticated enough to know how to minimize your changeovers between allergens automatically at this point. It's been worked on, but it's not there yet. So what we do by allergens is we have every single item within the system, all the attributes will be color coded. So if it's got nuts in it, it would maybe be red. If it's got gluten in it, it might be blue or wherever. But then you can say, I want to schedule by color attribute, and then you schedule all the blue ones, then you schedule the green ones and the red ones, etc. So basically, by scheduling by color at the same time, you can then keep everything in that same allergen area together. So then when you do a changeover, you're doing a good change or a proper changeover between them, and you're segregating your allergens. Hopefully that makes sense to everyone. You can also do other things like your products can be different colors, and all sorts of other attributes. You can use colors to actually help you sequence and manage the sequencing of things inside there. And again, you also have an EMAD, an earliest material availability date, available on your screen as well to do that. So I'm not going to cover any more of that one, but I will cover a few more things before I move on. Purchase orders. We've seen purchase orders there. We have standard purchase orders. We also have blanket purchase orders. Purchase orders look exactly the same as sales orders. So if we go in and have a look at a purchase order inside the system, it looks the same as a sales order. Okay. Completely the same inside the system. We also do have contract purchase orders as part of the blanket orders. So you can have a contract order for 1,000 of these over 12 months, and this is the price you're going to pay. The system will count down and tell you when you're going to exceed your contract or when you're going to have the contract there. You'll know how much more you're committed to before the end of the contract period and things like that. And when MRP raises an order, it will actually consume from that contract automatically in the background. And I've got a few more things I'm going to show you because I am conscious we are running over time now, or out of time, and then I'll take any general questions. So I'm just going to go back to my item master. One thing I do want to show you very quickly, pop my filters there, is I didn't show you disassembly bombs. So let's have a look at my chicken carcass here. So I've got an output here, which is a chicken carcass, which has a disassembly bomb against it. And what that basically means is we are going to disassemble this item to actually make a chicken carcass. So from a chicken carcass, we're going to get 2 legs, some chicken bits, some chicken legs, and etc., etc. So this is basically the disassembly bomb. So when we are then in production, so this is the anticipated yield from a chicken carcass. So we'll have a carcass and we'll have 2 legs, 2 wings, 2 breasts, and some other bits maybe. It's anticipated yield. But then when we're actually making the production orders, when we're capturing that data on our production screens, this is just one of the examples of the production screens we have there, you're recording how much actual output you've had, what the yield is going to be, and then you can do a mass balance or wherever it is at the end of the day to see exactly what's going on with your disassembly. So disassembly, excuse me, works with anything where you're taking an animal apart, but you don't have a set yield because it's a natural product, and every chicken is going to be different. Every turkey, every cow, pig, etc., is all going to be different on the yields you get from them. But by using the production screens, you can actually record all that information. We haven't covered much of these screens. I'm just going to give you a couple of ideas of what they're like. So on the system, we have 2 ways of doing production screens. We call them MES, manufacturing execution screens. We have our traditional one, which is basically on touch screens out on the shop floor, where you log in as a person, you say which area of the business you're working on, then you say which production order you're running, and it's capturing all this information. And we'll go into a bit more detail. And we also have the new Power App type of doing screens, where we have a little bit more graphical way of doing things. And we also have a disconnected way of doing it. So basically, Power Apps are the new feature where we can do all sorts of different functionality for making more ad hoc or bespoke touchscreens that go out on the shop floor. These all link to things like scales. So if you've got scales there, you can put information on the scales, record it in so it consume directly for the scales, and output your stock back into stock when you finish using them as well. And the last thing I'm going to cover before I stop talking for a bit is the other aspects of here is we can do things like booking scrap, byproducts. We can have components where we're going to consume what materials we're going to have on there. We can do stop codes inside the system. We can use a scanner for actually scanning the barcode of the raw material that we use. So all your lot traceability goes all the way through the system. You can also have multiple people on the line as well. So if a production order is complete, we can click OK. The production order complete will go on to the next part of the production order. We can do end of shift breakdown, all sorts of things inside there as well. What else would be relevant for us there as well? And I'm just going to very quickly then show you the traceability. So this is probably the last bit before I stop talking. So we also have full lot traceability within the system. We haven't done any production order at the moment, but we can see lot number information list. We can see all the traceability to individual lots through the system, and we can do a full forward and backward track or trace for an item. So if someone's doing, if you're doing your annual inspection, and my brain's gone completely now. If you're doing your annual inspection, they give you a serial number or a lot number to trace. You can do a forward trace to see where did that raw material come from, and you can also do a backward trace to see, well, where else did that raw material go, and you can do that within seconds rather than the 4 hours that they normally give you to do those traceability checks. And that assumes you're doing all the traceability within the system, and your lot tracking is being done within the system with everything's being scanned on the barcodes within the system. So I'm going to open it up to general questions now. I've gone over my time by a bit, but anyone that's got any questions or want to see anything else, talk about anything else, let me know. Any questions?
How can you manage the sample?
Manage your samples if you're going to send samples to customers.
Yeah.
Do you send them out as free samples, or do you send them out as costed samples?
Free sample.
Okay, so there's a couple of ways of doing that. So you can either have you can have a product category called sample. So when you send it out, the system will mark it as free, and Business Central always has to create an invoice for everything you send out. But if you have it as a marked as sample, it will actually create a zero cost invoice and then basically hide it in the background so the customer doesn't see it. But it has to have something to ship out into the background. But you also may have a unit of measure called sample, where you can create a sub element to it. So we can have multiple different units of measure. We have a base unit of measure, but we can also have different units of measure where we can say a sample unit of measure, for example, is 0.1 of a kilo, or a special kind of packaging or anything like that. So we do have a number of different ways of managing samples within the system. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone got any other questions?
I mean, one of the things we've tried to show is obviously quite high level. We know there's to do a demo like this, we're trying to cover as much as we can for the audience. Typically, we have conversations with the individual organizations, understand what your challenges or your requirements are, and then we would do a more tailored presentation around that. So if anybody has something particular, I know nobody likes unmuting and asking those questions, but if anyone has put something in the chat or follow up with us, then you know, Darren and the team would be in touch to understand more about your requirements.
Quick question, if I may. How much have you done to integrate to manufacturing control systems on continuous processes?
So we have interfaces to SCADA systems, different production systems. Each one of them is a little bit unique based upon their capability. So sometimes they can have like a CSV file that comes in and out that we have to transfer. Sometimes they can have an API call. It really does depend upon the equipment.
Yes, I get
some
that.
It's really old.
Yes,
really
yes,
old.
no, I get that. And can you deal in continuous process industries?
Yes, so
with
again,
variable weights and weigh bridges.
Yes, so we've got quite a few customers. I mean, there's a customer yesterday where they got weigh bridges that goes in, and we can also do things like ANPR. So we can talk to the ANPR. So the ANPR will scan the vehicle that's just turned in. It will then go on the weigh bridge. The tear weight will then be put on there, and then when the lorry goes back out, the tear weight will be done again. So we can communicate. But again, interfaces is one of the tricky areas, because people say, well, can you do an interface to this? And then they give us a 30-year-old weigh bridge, which produces a flat file, a CSV file. So yes, we can do it, but it's not very good. Whereas if you've got things like ANPR cameras and stuff like that, which are brand new technology, the interface is usually via an API that we can do. So Business Central is really open. And if you do search for API integration in Business Central, all the information about it is all there. So we can pretty much communicate with most things. It all depends upon what the other system is capable of doing and exposing. I mean, if you look at someone like Costa Coffee, all of their machines are fully automated, and we just talk to the machines all the while. And where if you talk to some of the other companies like Gressing there, their systems there, they got well, I can't even remember what it's called there, but all their old machines there, they just produce a CSV file that we just pick up and write stuff to, because that's all they can do at the back in the background.
Yeah. Thank you.
All sorts of stuff. All sorts of stuff.
Yep. Okay. Thank you, Darren. Yep.
All right. Any other questions?
Can you explain how to calculate the license cost per user in Dynamics?
It's quite it's quite straightforward. So everything in Dynamics now is a named user. Okay, so there's four different kind of user types. You have a premium user. So if you're doing full production within the system, it's a premium user. So everyone that needs to use the system would be either a premium user or a team member. So a team member can read the whole system, can create sales quotes, purchase quotes, view any data, and do authorizations. Okay, and they're £6.60 per user per month. A premium user is £82.20 per user per month. So you've got to determine what the role that the person is going to be doing is. And then the third kind of user, if you're doing full production, is a device user. So these are device users. So you have a device out on the shop floor, or you have a device on a handheld device, such as a scanner. So we haven't really talked about warehouse management, but these scanners. So the device is licensed itself rather than the people. So you can have 10, 20 people using the device. So on production, you'd have a touch screen at the end of the production line where people are booking stuff off, printing labels off, and all this kind of stuff. And the device is licensed, and they're £32.20 per device, or thereabouts, around £32-33 per device. Okay, but it's generally named user unless you're using a device user.
How about the director?
Director, if he's running reports and he's not a hands-on director, he'd be a team member, which is £6.60. So he can run any report, view any bit of data within the system. He just can't. Basically, the rule of thumb is if you're touching the ledgers, updating the ledgers in the background, you have to be a full user. If you're not updating the ledgers, you can be a team member with like read access to the system.
Okay, thank you.
There is, if anyone's really bored, there's a licensing guide. If you do a search for Microsoft Business Central licensing guide, there is a licensing guide that tells you a little bit more information about that, but it is very hard reading. Any other questions? No? All gone quiet? If there's no more, go on, sorry.
There's one in the chat, Darren. Can we use Android devices to scan items in the warehouse?
Absolutely. That's our preferred device. So this is our preferred devices are Honeywell, because we know they're pretty good. They don't fail very often. But you can just use an Android phone and use the camera on the back of the Android phone. So when I'm doing my demos to people, I just use my works phone, which is an Android phone. But any Android 4.4 and above, so that's pretty much everything these days, will be able to run this kind of scanning device.
You can find that software that Dan's got on the slide there. It's our the software that we've written called Clever Dynamics is our software or app side of what we do.
Clever WMS, that one is, yeah.
Yeah, that's the Clever WMS, and that's on the Google Play Store. So you know you can if you have to link it to BC, so you need a BC tenant, but it's fairly easy to do. We publish all the setup to at least have a play. Obviously, then we configure it to get the most out of it. But yeah, that's a possibility as well.
Any more? Can you see any more, Liam?
Is there anything else in the chat? I think someone was about to ask a question before I jumped in with the question in the chat. If anybody wants to ask anything else, feel free.
I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see what chat's going on. No.
If not, what we'll do is we will follow up. As I said, it's Thursday, isn't it? So I imagine before the end of the week. But we'll get something out with a link to the recording and a little bit more information regarding the services we offer. If anyone would like that conversation, we don't charge to come out and have those conversations to understand what you do. Those discovery sessions are what we do as part of our, the sales process. That can be, in person. That can be initially over Teams or something like that. But one-to-one, just to understand a little bit more, and we can then probably hone in on some of the subject matter with Darren. I say Darren's covered today, and see if we can help him then. I just did this question about, are there any webinars for CRM? Lauren, who's been our admin on this one, will know. We do on our website on techman.co.uk. There'll be an events page. I'm just going to log onto it now and I'll tell you. We do run regularly around the Dynamics CRM. side of things as well. But we run webinars and workshops that are typically all free. I'm just looking onto our events. So tell me
one thing we don't do, Liam, we've never done a webinar on NPD on there, have we? Maybe we should do a webinar on NPD in the CRM.
No, that's very true. We haven't done that. But I'm just looking at the introductory events. So we've got, yeah, Darren was on. There's one on Tuesday, the 18th of June. Taste Success with Dynamics Food. I imagine we're about to push the ones for the second half of the year after the summer holidays. If you keep your eye on that events page, we definitely do CRM events. So I'll try and find out where the next one is on, and we can get that over to you. But just keep your eye on the events page, or if we've mailed you, I'm sure that might come out anyway as part of our regular comms if we're offering another event.
Unity. We have it's not one we come across that often. We have done Unity before. I think the most difficult part of that is getting your data out of the old system. But I think it depends on kind of skills you have in-house as to how easy it is. So the biggest part of any implementation is, when we put Business Central in, it's getting the data out of your old system into a viable format to make sense in your new one. Because what you don't want to do, you don't want to recreate what your old system's doing. You want to use Business Central as standard as possible, but you still got to bring your old data in to actually use it, because you don't want to be recreating everything from scratch. So if you can get your data out of there, then you should be able to use it. You might even have an ODBC connector for Unity. But it's not one we come across that often, but we have come across it in the past. Okay, if anyone does have any other questions, you've got our contact details now. Please feel free to drop us a line. Happy to come out and meet you, understand what you need, and we can move it on to the next one. But thank you for attending. It was been good. Hopefully I wasn't too fast. I think I was quite fast then. So
yeah. So thank you, as Darren said. Thank you very much. I know we try to squeeze as much as we could into the time, but appreciate you taking the morning to join us. And if we can help in any which way, please reach out to us, or I think we might be asking for some feedback as well as part of the follow-up email, so we're always grateful for that to improve those events. But thank you very much, and hopefully we'll speak to you soon.
Cheers. Thanks a lot. Bye.